So this is a trippy story. This is trippy. This comes out of Effingham County, Georgia. In Effingham County, Georgia, this guy right here named Steve Yekel. Steve Yekel is going to commit suicide the last day of his tenure. He had an election. He won the first election, the first runoff, and then the second runoff he lost. And so maybe he was just so damn distraught. I'm not for sure what is the reason, but this is interesting that he tried to submit a resignation letter, which the governor had said no. The governor, Brian Kemp, the guy didn't win his election. Why wouldn't you let him just fucking resign? I don't understand the goddamn difference. It's almost like if he resigned, he would get a pension or some shit. So I'm going to read what the letter said. Please be advised that I respectfully submit my letter of resignation as state court judge of Effingham County effective December 30th, 2024, the letter said. That's the same day that he had shot himself. They said that he shot himself in the head with a firearm overnight. So therefore, they didn't find the dead body until the next day. Now, that's kind of interesting as, by itself. Are you sure nobody walked in and you sure nobody walked out? Because if you're the judge, you probably fucked over a lot of fucking people, right? Now it's going to say, carry on. I feel that the office of State Court Judge of Effingham is too important to be decided by only 6% of the eligible voters of Effingham County. Which he's right, and I'll come back to that. Let's continue with the letter. A letter Kemp wrote in return on December 12th shows that he did not accept Yekel's resignation. Why would you not accept his fucking resignation? He got fired. He got fired by the voters. It's like, well, I quit. Well, no, I fired you. You fired me? Well, then I quit. Well, which is it? Does it fucking matter? I guess sometimes it matters if you're going to get unemployment. Well, were you fired or did you quit? Well, I quit, and then because I didn't show up for work anymore, he fired me. So it's, tomato, tomato. Who the hell says tomato? Nobody does. But potatoes was okay. However, regardless of the low turnout for this year's election, cited in your letter, the people of Effingham County have spoken once again, this time electing Miss Melissa Calhoun to the state court. I think it's Mrs. I think she's married. To the state court bench for a term beginning January 1st, 2025. The results of a fair election should not be nullified on the basis of a manufactured legal technicality. Okay, manufactured legal technicality, what the fuck? This isn't a manufactured technicality. This is actually, he wants to keep the job. He wants to keep the power, and I feel like he's just so damn distraught because he had, financial issues. His wife had a failed daycare. He's got 4 kids. He had power. He's been a lawyer for the last, 45 years. So he's been a lawyer for the past 45 years. Got to be judge. He's appointed judge, but he didn't win his damn election. Now, these 6%, this is really important, okay? This is really important. So Steve Yekel, he had said that he had a 6%, the election. In 2022, that election was won by over 1,400 votes. So Steve Yekel had filled the vacancy for Judge Ronald Thompson, was appointed. Okay, and then the second election on May 21st, 2024, Yekel received 900 more votes than any other candidate. But he didn't win by a substantial amount to where he could avoid a runoff. And then the runoff election, July 18th, against Melissa Calhoun, he's going to lose by less than 400 votes among the nearly 6,000 cast. So that's, Steve Yekel. Let's take a look at this Melissa. Now, here's a nice picture of Melissa right here, but this is kind of, not so nice. I'm not for sure. Do we want to, let's show this picture. Let's show this picture real quick. This picture comes up saying maybe that's what it was. He was like, how did I lose to her? But, that's just on her off day, right? She just had an off day there. She didn't have her makeup on and she didn't have her hair dyed. Now, you have, I think it's the same person. I think that she just got some makeup on. She's got, Her hair's all done. So anyways, this is Melissa Calhoun. And then look at all these people. Are these all the people that, no, they're just talking about 5 Georgia judges have lost their seats. Okay, so let's go back to, this is Melissa Calhoun right here, right? Do we have a bigger picture? There we go. Okay, so Melissa Calhoun, she's going to be the new state court judge for Effingham. So if we just look at the numbers, so Melissa Calhoun got 1,407 votes versus 1,088. That's about a 300 vote difference. Okay, well that's out of 46,188 registered voters. He is right in some sense. He's absolutely right, actually, in all the senses, but I think he is just trying to come up with some shit to... Stephen Yekel is right. She doesn't have democratic legitimacy, nor did he. Because when you got 46,000 registered voters, you're supposed to represent the majority of the people. The majority of the people, not just registered voters. So you only had 6% of the people that turned out of the election. And since you only had 6% of the people, that doesn't represent 50%. And then you only won the majority of the 6%, which means that's less than 4%. And then 46,000 is the registered voters. What about the unregistered voters? There's what, another 50 fucking thousand? So then that makes it less than 2%. So they already had low turnout elections. You've had low turnout elections a bunch of times in America. And apparently if only 5 people show up, then the 3 people that voted, they get the one that they want. But if you don't have 90 fucking percent of the damn people going to the fucking polls, you got a broken election system. You got an election system that people are basically saying that this shit doesn't matter. It doesn't. You don't have democratic legitimacy because you need to represent more than 50% of the people. Now, if you had some sort of poll, I would like to know the reasons for why people don't vote. If people are just choosing not to vote, that's different. Versus people think that their vote doesn't matter, their vote won't go anywhere. For, registration reasons, maybe they're not getting registered, maybe it's something to do with the election registrar. So 6% of the people doesn't represent the majority of the people. Now, I don't think that's the main reason for why he killed himself. I don't think that's the main reason for why he was pushing for a resignation. And then somebody made the comment about he tried to resign. The governor, Brian Kemp, said no, so then the judge just went over his head and resigned permanently. So it does seem like the fucking semantics of all this is really fucking crazy. So let's take a look at Steve Yekel here for a second. This was during his, campaign.
Because of that, he says his goal is to make the experience as simple as possible.
Everybody speeds. One time or another, somebody's going to be committing a speeding violation. And if it's less than 30 miles an hour and there's no significant traffic history, my policy is, in conjunction with the solicitor's office, is we reduce it to 14 miles so it's not reported to Department of Driver Services. We adjust the fine. We reduce the speed so there is no points on the license.
Yekel says his nearly 2 years of experience in the position has highlighted sections of the court system that still need improvement. He says his priorities, if re-elected, would focus on establishing a DUI court, as well as the possibility of a family court because of the growing number of cases he sees in those areas.
We know we have both of those needs. The question is whether we can address them immediately, which may be more the DUI court, and then maybe the family violence a little bit further down the line.
Well, no one...
So that's a little bit of Steve Yekel. You kind of see like he just seems like a lonesome person. I read this one article and the criticisms go on and on and on. Apparently he was trying to make money off the probation. You tax the probation and you get the fees, and then there privatized probation, and then there was noticeable tension. There was lawyers that didn't want to appear in his court because he was, clearly, that person is guilty. Person A, B, or C is guilty. No presumption of innocence. If a person just gets kidnapped and arrested, then he's just going to have power and authority over them. He's been a lawyer for 45 years. He was a judge for 1.5 years, so he doesn't have the long-term experience of a judge. But I feel like he could have just won the next election. I don't know why he had to fucking off himself like that. And so I do think he makes a good point about there not being any democratic legitimacy. That's a really good point because if you don't have 50% of the public, then you don't have democratic legitimacy. And that's not a criticism for Melissa Calhoun. That's a criticism for a whole bunch of elections all across America. Here, let's take a listen to something he said in this interview with Georgia Virtue. I don't even know what this is.
Well, I was previously in private practice and the chief conflict defender for the Southeast region for 16 years prior to running for judgeship. I've tried over 500 cases, civil and criminal, 50 murder cases, and 2 death penalty cases. I ran in 2022, in fact was elected May 24th, 2022 by over 1,400 votes. But what happened is the previous judge, who was the state court judge, resigned to become a superior court judge. When he did, the office became vacant, and there was a previous appellate court decision by the Supreme Court of Georgia that ruled that when a judicial office is vacant, in other words, the judge does not complete his term of office, then the governor is the only one that's allowed to fulfill a judicial vacancy. So even if it voids an election, which is exactly what it did. So the election was voided. The governor appointed me as state court judge on June 22nd, 2022, and I've been serving ever since.
Now that's fucking interesting as fuck there. So he said that the election was voided, so he had gotten actually into office by somehow voiding an election, and since the election was voided, then he was appointed into office. So he's basically been a corrupt judge with no Democratic or Republican, any kind of legitimacy whatsoever. They voided out an election. They voided it out. And so maybe that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to resign, so therefore the Kemp would have to, appoint somebody else, and but Kemp didn't want to do it. The chief judge's name for this Effingham County is F. Gates Peed. Like if you peed all over somebody, F. Gates Peed. Effingham County, Georgia. So he had killed himself inside the county courtroom on the last day of his judicial power, his last day of political power. And I'm sure Clandis Oinkins would probably say that this is some sort of Operation Mockingbird MLK Ultra kind of, conspiracy. But I think that it seems obvious to me. He's been a kind of an asshole, right? Rubber stamping anybody and everybody's cop when a cop comes in and says there's a ticket. I heard that anybody who got over 30 miles per hour speeding ticket was thrown in jail. There was even a guy that had collapsed. And then with the interview with Melissa Calhoun, she just kind of kept going on and on with the complaints. She wasn't mean about it. And then, I think she's a good talker, but she was just kind of saying that there's issues, there's issues that's going on there. And the election was close. It was 1407 versus 1088. So she didn't win by a substantial amount. But that conversation, I kind of, I was reading a bunch of it, but then it just kind of kept on going. But, so it wasn't so much she was saying, oh, he's a corrupt, he's a piece of shit, he's evil, he's wicked. She was just kind of pointing out a little nip and tuck things that should happen here and happen there. But maybe if you add it all together, it does kind of, paint a picture of he's got all this tension, he's, power hungry, there's corruption there, he's got privatized probation, so you want to hurry up and convict somebody so the defendants can pay the fines, and then there was a rotating fine thing where people couldn't pay the fine, then they had to pay another $50 on top of the $200 fine, and so they just had this rotating thing where people would just stay basically, in escrow, or they would just stay, like, the mortgage, they could never pay the mortgage. So it was very Effingham, county fucked up. It was Effingham. What the effing is going on in Effingham County? What the effing is going on? You effing son of a bitch. So it wasn't like she was saying anything like that. Effingham County, Georgia is 30 miles northwest of Savannah, Georgia. Of course, you had Sherman's March to the Sea, William Tecumseh Sherman's March to the Sea, where he, burnt down the Confederacy and then ended up in Savannah, and then gives Savannah as a gift to Abraham Lincoln during the Christmas times. He had 4 kids. He had a wife. Melissa M. Calhoun was the person who had beat him. And I think that's about it. maybe we could listen to a little bit more of him. Let's hear a little bit more of him.
Great. So that's about 2 years, just about, give or take a little bit of time. And you really hit the ground running and had a lot of work to do. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you have done so far as it pertains to your office and the way that you're operating the courts?
Yes, ma'am. One of the first things I did was, and it was directly related to the investigation that you did previously about the issue we were having with DUI cases. And because your research indicated that 47% of all DUI in Effingham County were dismissed or reduced for no stated reason. And what I immediately did once taking office is I required the Solicitor General to state in open court the reason if a DUI cannot be prosecuted as originally charged by the officer. Then they have to state a reason in open court that's a valid, justifiable reason. They also will fill out a form that I created, which will be filed in the record. So if anyone questions as to what the disposition of a case was, if it was reduced or modified, and why, it will be there for them to see.
So that's interesting. Just Jessica Szilagyi, she had already confronted him about something about DUIs, and he basically changed his entire processes just for one little article that she had written. And so if, he took it to heart with just that little bit of, criticism, and then if he's the judge, so he's the one in power, you got to kiss his ass, right? Every man will be a fascist if you let him. That's what Abigail Adams said. And resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. I want to end with just a couple quotes from Confucius, and then we'll just call it a day. Here's some wisdom from Confucius. Confucius says that life is simple, but we make it complicated. It doesn't matter how slowly you go, you just don't stop. Makes me think of MLK. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. And if you can't crawl, well then you're fucked. Well, not exactly that, but you see the point, right? You go at your own pace, but you keep moving forward. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. I once heard Socrates said that wisdom is knowing that you are ignorant. But this is better because real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. Again, that's Confucius. I hear, but I forget. I see, well, I remember. If I do, I understand. It's better to be a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without one. And then that's it. I mean, this Melissa Calhoun, I don't even think she was from Georgia. She said she practiced in Illinois and Iowa, and then she was able to get a license in Georgia, so I think it's a complete outsider, and it probably was just a coup, but just a democratically legitimate elected coup, which is how republics work. If you don't have an election, then you don't have a damn republic, so you need that democracy in a republic. If you don't have democracy in a republic, then you don't have a fucking republic at all. And then we just saw the beginning of that. In the beginning of this, I had pulled up a thing where it pointed out that there was 5 judges. There was 5 judges that had lost their election. So I think that's fantastic. I'm glad that Georgia actually has elections when it comes to the judges instead of that bullshit retention elections. And it's sad to see that this guy basically just took it too fucking hard. He had all the power. He was a fucking, running the court like a tyrant. And then when he didn't have the power, he was like, well, who am I? They got financial issues. I mean, how long is the damn term? He could have just ran for, office in another 4 years. He also still could be a lawyer, right? Doesn't he still have his fucking law degree or his, license to practice law? It seems like he very hastily kind of made this decision. He is 74 years old, so I could see him kind of taking it tough or taking it hard. I could also see perhaps, there is like some foul play. So I think they should really take a look at the video to see if anybody did walk in at the end there and then walk out. Because to make it look like a suicide, it wouldn't be that difficult. There wasn't a suicide note per se. There was just that resignation letter. So, did he indicate that he was sad to anybody? Just seems like it's kind of out of the blue. And since he was kind of a tyrant, since he was a dictator, authoritarian, fascist, he probably pissed a lot of fucking people off. And so then maybe the thought of him going back to being a private citizen without the awesome power of state power maybe just scared the shit out of him. I could see that happening, but I could also see somebody coming back later on, and then, I've seen it in a movie, but basically the guy just like held the arm right, in the right position. So that way it looks like, when he falls down, the gun is going to still be in the hand or to be real close to the hand. They just made it look like a suicide. They put the gun in the hand. They made him squeeze the trigger. They were going to make him squeeze the trigger. He was able to get out of it, but that's how they were going to do it. Hell, you probably could just shoot the person and put the gun in the hand and then, see if the investigators are smart enough to figure it out. So I think there's a slim possibility, a tiny possibility of foul play. They should investigate it as if there's the possibility. Make sure you rule that fucking thing out. Because if it's a suicide, well, you don't have to do any work, right? Well, shit, dude just fucking offed himself. Well, goddamn. Anyways, what's for breakfast, right? So you don't have to do any goddamn work if you just go ahead and conclude that it's a suicide. And that's it. And that's it. So, R.I.P. to the judge, Steve Yekel. He did make a good point about 6% of the damn county, 300 vote difference, right? And then he had got the damn seat because they nullified an election. They nullified an election, and then he was appointed. So they already kind of, pulled some shit. And in a way, he was kind of saying, hey, can you pull some shit again, Governor? And the governor's like, no, I don't think I'm going to pull some shit anyways. I'm not going to pull some shit again. Because he was saying, well, if I resign, then technically the office has been vacated. And if I resign, the office has been vacated. And therefore, you need to appoint a new judge instead of allowing this damn Melissa M. Calhoun, who used to be my underling. She used to be a damn lawyer in the court. Somebody who would tick me off and piss me off and be a damn thorn in my side. And now she's going to be the judge? Now she's going to be the judge? Holy shit. What have you all done? So there you go. That's my take of the Steve Yekel fucking suicide, Effingham County, Georgia, debacle.